Hello, hello,
Hello,
hello.
hello.
Yeah, somebody's.
Can you hear me?
I can. I can. Good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Um.
How are you?
Oh, I'm having a good afternoon actually.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. It is. It is. It is. It is. The rain has cleared. The storms have gone, and it's quite a pleasant day actually where I am. How is it where you are?
It is sunny and the birds are chirping. I don't know if you can hear them in the background, but it's
Oh.
early, 20 after 7 in the morning. So
Oh.
everything's just waking up. I've been awake for an hour already. So
Uh-huh.
I've got my first cup of coffee into me and I'm raring to go.
Oh, rock and roll, rock and roll. That's the way to be. I can't do anything without coffee in the morning. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, I'm the same.
I need that peace in that space of coffee. And if there's no coffee, it's like the end of the world for some reason.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah, and it's not good if anyone is around me at that point. Like, no coffee. Oh no. How am I going to live without? We're all spoilt in the modern world. That's what it is.
Maybe.
I was maybe like, no, I don't think so, but okay.
Yeah, I think coffee is just a staple, isn't it? Isn't it just something everybody does? Breathing.
Yeah. Maybe it is. I tend to look at everything sometimes as a luxury, which is not always the best way to look at everything. But this blessed to be alive, blessed to have opportunity, blessed to be able to talk to you, blessed to be able to spend time with people, just blessed for the things that are around me. And having lived in a variety of different countries and places, and I've seen people who have a lot and people who don't have much at all, and I'm just sort of I really do feel blessed for everything, right? I'm blessed for the fact that I got a fridge with food in it. I'm blessed for the fact that I just got a fridge.
Yeah.
Even if there was no food in it, I'd be blessed for the fact of having that. I'm blessed for the opportunity to drink my milkshake, which I've got right now with banana and apricot, which is really nice.
Oh, that sounds
and some strange almond milk, which I found in the fridge, which was not put there by me. How the hell anybody gets milk from almonds?
Yeah, I haven't quite figured that out yet. I used to give it to my son because he has issues with milk, and I questioned that myself too. I'm like, almond milk, they're nuts. But if you think about it, if you crush them up with maybe some water, it would make a milky substance. It's not milk. It
would, in fact, that's exactly what it tastes like, actually, because I was like, I wonder what that tastes like. And it was like, that tastes like cardboard. Okay.
Oh no. I wasn't brave enough to try it when I gave it to my
son. So I mixed it with some real milk, some full fat real milk, not the semi-skimmed ultra stuff with everything good removed from it. Anyway, that's my state or status at the moment. Hey, I can hear voices in the background.
Yeah, my little guy's running around. He's semi-quiet.
Oh no, I have that. I have that here as well. I have that here as well. Usually a lot of the time, but the kids have been taken into town, so I got this little bit of space this afternoon. My son has turned the living room into a mock replica of the bridge on the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, nice.
So what that means is nothing is where it should be.
Yeah. The joys of
the only thing he hasn't moved is the piano.
It's just too big.
It's too heavy. And it's jammed into the corner of the room.
Yeah. Yeah, kids. I think boys are, I don't know, like I have two girls. My two girls are already grown up and moved out. They're 21 and 20. And then now I have these two boys, and they're 4 and a year and a half, and it's so different. Like boys compared to girls are so different.
Well, it's, you know, we sort of, there's this silly thing called gender neutrality, where it's not good to, you know, you shouldn't introduce boys to blue and girls to pink, and once you have kids, you're like screw that. They introduce themselves to it. Right?
Yeah, and there's a whole different, I don't know, maybe it's just the masculine energy. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is, but they're just busier, I think, is like with my girls, they would just sit nicely and play quiet games, whereas the boys are like, no, let's run around and scream and destroy the place.
Oh yeah, there's a fidget thing as well with boys. They just don't want to do. It's like being still is an absolute impossibility, which is why school is hell for, you know, young boys. Because it's like, sit in this one place and don't move for the next 45 minutes. It's like, oh my god, right? You know,
I can't do that.
You know, that's like an evil marshmallow test, right? You know, it's just it's absolutely impossible to whereas girls will tend to sit and read or talk, or, you know, there is less physical movement in general with them. However, saying that, the bigger the space, the more they tend to tear around out of control.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
In my experience, you know, so yeah, boys and girls are different, shall we say? We just put it.
Well, I think there's just a different makeup, and maybe it's like I'm not a doctor or a scientist or anything like that, but I think it's a whole plethora of things. Like it's not even just one thing, but I think at the same time we're humans, so boys and girls are still the same in the same ways, right? Like it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I get that point. Well, you know that I'm into holistic principles, so it's like it fits kind of perfectly into my vision, which is, you know, you take a circle, you draw a line through the middle of it, you put boys on one side, girls on the other side, and you say, well, that's life, right? You know? Yeah. That's life. You've got the yin and the yang, you've got the male and the female, the up, the down, the left, the right, as above, so below, etc., etc.
Yeah.
You know, love and hate, tra-la-la, and so it's part of a balance that needs to exist. You know, if there's only men, obviously things get out of control.
Yeah.
And if there's only women, well, I imagine the same would happen, although I don't really have much experience.
I think so. I don't know. Like I've heard some people say, going around politics, I don't usually talk about, but they say that if a woman ran the country, and I'm like, I don't know about that. If a woman ran the country, that could be scary. You know, because women are emotionally up and down most of the time, and they live in the emotional part of their brain. And not all women, but most of us, that's how we are. I think that's how we're wired, unless we're really aware and we are in control of our emotional side, right?
Isn't it enough to have the responsibility to bring up children? Isn't that enough?
Oh, I think so.
I mean, why do people want to manage everyone and everything, you know, when they can't even essentially manage themselves?
No, I totally agree with you.
I went to a sports university many years ago. That's where I started my education and realized it wasn't for me. And there was a women's rugby team there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know much about the sport of rugby. There's a ball and there's no rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the whole game is designed to create as much physical contact as possible.
Yeah.
It was, designed by the public schools, which are the private schools in Britain, about 150 years ago, for character building amongst young men, basically to train them to be soldiers, actually.
Yeah,
and
makes sense to me.
Anyway, so there was a girls' rugby team, and so I thought this is going to be interesting. So me and my friends, we went down to the field to watch this game, and I swear it was the most blindly brutal experience I've ever witnessed in my life. If you think the Roman gladiator tournaments were bad, right? I mean, this was like gladiators on steroids, right? Because we're men kind of have this sort of healthy respect. They'll beat each other up on the park or in the.
There we go.
Dun 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 dun.
Seems to be the way. I don't know if it's my connection or just my phone. I put it on Do Not Disturb so that I'm not getting a whole bunch of notifications, because that's what seemed to be happening there.
Okay, that's cool. When we know what the problem is, we're halfway to the solution, I think.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. So the rugby team. Yes.
Oh yeah, women's rugby. The brutal spectacle of basically the attempt to annihilate a group of people. Which is what it was, because when men are off the park, they've kind of got this go for a beer and be all manly and sort of pat each other on the back and, well, we did a good job and well done and whatever, right? Yeah, that doesn't exist in my experience with women. Okay, it's just as off the park, it's just as brutal as it is on the park. And when they're on the park, it's like I saw them like trying to tear each other's eyes out. Yeah. Because they'd claw at each other's faces to get the ball and whoa,
I don't think it would be a good idea for a woman to run the world. I don't know. It's
in my experience, you get these. I don't know if you get, but I've had experiences of meeting women who run companies, and they seem to be more. They seem to have a lot of male characteristics.
Right.
About them. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying it's an observation, right? I'm just saying that what I've noticed about these women is that they appear to be what I would describe as less feminine, just in their approach and their attitude, and that's maybe that's just them in the office. I don't know, because who knows what people are like at home. But
this is true too. But I think they would still have to have some of those masculine traits or qualities, right? Because it would require greater problem solving. Not to say women can't solve problems, but I think men that's what they're programmed to do. Maybe we are when it comes to our kids and stuff, but on a grander scheme, I don't know about that.
I noticed that was part of the article that you wrote. Yeah, that the male problem-solving principle. That was it. Am I right in remembering that it was in there where men appeared to be wired to like the radar is like find problem, found problem, solve problem, fix problem. Have fixed problem, move to next problem.
Yeah, well, I know that's how my husband is. It's like he just, when I tell him how I feel, if I feel something's off, he's like, tell me how to fix it. And I'm like, I don't know. Now you're putting me on the spot, like it's not just a problem, it's a feeling. So, you know, I think, and that's where men and women get a little kerfuddled, is because it's not, they just want to fix it, and we know how to fix it, but if we're put on the spot to say, how can I fix it, then we're like, I have no idea. Your brain kind of goes blank.
Yeah, well, I think men from time to time have that same kind of feeling as well, although probably a lot of them don't want to admit it. But it's really interesting because I mentioned my son and Star Trek earlier, and I was looking for something wholesome to introduce him to sort of male characteristics. So I went back and downloaded the original 60s Star Trek episodes, which have these male characters, I think, in a positive role model. Of course, my partner has to point out that there doesn't seem to be many positive role models of women there. I'm like, but it was the 1960s, you know, whatever. Okay, so give me a break. Nothing is perfect, right? So. Anyway, so you've got these male characters who have to make these really important decisions. I'm not saying Star Trek is wonderful. I'm just saying that that's one little example that I can give. Yeah. And so, and you know, the character of Spock, the logical thinker, right? There's the other characters who are all human, and then there's Spock, who's from the planet Vulcan, where they've tried to remove emotions from their society and trying to think only with rationale and logic. And there is a difference in the processes that men and women use, where men look for facts and women, I don't know if they look for feelings. They tend to maybe recognize them more than the men do, because men tend to sort of kill the feeling element of themselves. Yeah, that sports is an example of that. Yeah, where you're taught, you know, to mask your pain, right?
Yeah.
During the game or whatever. Don't show your weakness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely this element where men are looking for logical processes, and I've heard this on a lot of call-in shows, right? Where, you know, if a guy calls in to talk about his problems, he'll talk about this happened and this happened and then that happened and that. There'll be a process, yeah. Whereas if a woman talks about her problems, what you get is, I think, I feel, it seems to me.
Yeah.
Which, if you're a guy, it's which I am. It's like, how do I process this? Because these are not facts. These are not cogs in the machine, right?
Yeah.
How do they interconnect? And the man is left with this. Well, you know, okay, so you feel that, but that, and the feeling is a fact, but we're not talking about facts. We're talking about feelings.
Right.
It's almost like it's one step away from what it is we're trying to solve, or maybe not away from it. Maybe it's just in a different sphere of the problem.
Right.
Where the man can see the problem, and the woman can see maybe something around the problem or how the problem affects people more.
Yeah. Well, I think there's maybe it's such a huge subject, and I'm just glad we're talking about it, because I think, like, with my own relationship, I think it's, like, thank God I'm aware, because otherwise I probably would have ran like I did from other relationships. And, you know, I'm willing to put in the hard work and be understanding and try to figure out exactly why he does the things he does and who he is, right? But there's times that we, you know, if I have a feeling that's not being met, or something that's not being met, I used to be the kind of girl that would hold it in and say nothing, and then ignore you and treat you like a piece of crap because I was upset, but I wasn't bothering to say anything about it. And then I would all of a sudden blow up and be like, wow, you did this, you did that. And then he would look at me and go, like, what is your problem?
Here's the remote.
Yeah, and he would just shut down because I would come at him attacking him. And so he would either shut down or he would attack me back. And then it would turn into a great big fight. And I've learned in the last, I want to say 3-4 years, that it's not worth holding crap back. Like, if something bothers you, you have to say something right away. And it doesn't matter if they like it or not, you have to say it, you know. And so now, going 6 years later, I can do that with him. And sometimes he'll get defensive, but it's usually when it's the truth. And people don't like to hear the truth all the time, right? So it's
I don't really, and this is maybe again the male perspective, I'm not sure, but I don't like this idea that when people say the truth is kind of in between everything. I'm like, no, we've hopefully developed in the world to a point where we're able to use processes in the sense of things like the scientific method enough to be able to establish what is true. Because if people are walking around saying, oh, well, you know, the truth is it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. No, fuck no, right? Because if you get in a court of law, if you've ever been in a court of law, right, and they're listening to the information from one side, the information from the other side, and the aim is to decipher the information and decide which are the real important contents and what are the facts and what is the evidence. Yeah. And that's pretty much a male-orientated environment, right? And from the perspective that we've talked about, you know, it's like, give me the evidence, you know, give me something from you know, give me something real, give me something tangible, give me something that we've seen, something that somebody's touched. There, which you know, that kind of relates back to what you said earlier about, you know, a woman running things. Would that be better or would that be worse? There has been a huge movement in and throughout history by men to keep women out of power. And I'm not saying conspiracy or anything like that. I'm just saying, look at the religions, right? They were all set up to be male dominant. And one of the reasons for this was I don't know if it's justified or unjustified, but definitely a fear that men had that if women got into power and control, things would be insane. And that it wouldn't be possible to control it in any way. And the religions were specifically set up in that way, where women took care of the household and looked after the children, which I think is, you know, at times much more important than the job and going out to work, right? You know, bringing up the next generation is a pretty responsible position to be in. So, I think that I'm just losing my train of thought now. Where I'm going with this, but
no, well, you're right. You're totally right about that, because I don't know, like with the women's movement, like I think it's good. I think women should have rights, blah, blah, blah. But I'm kind of a little bit old school. I think the woman should stay home. If you choose to have children, you should be staying home with your kids and raising them. And like, I'm all for making good money and doing this and doing that, but at what cost, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Good point.
For me, I want to be with my kids, and that's maybe you could call me I don't know what you'd call that label would be, but I'm old school in that way. And if I can do anything I can do to work from home to contribute to my family, then that's what I do. And I stay home with my kids. You know, I'm not going to ship them off to a babysitter all day long and not raise my kids. Why the hell kids? That doesn't even make sense to me.
I've got to be really, really honest with you about something, and I'm honest anyway, but I've got to be even more honest about this. When I read the article about, you know, the article that you wrote, what was the title again of the article? I forgot what the title was. What women need? Was it what women do? What men need?
Yeah, what women need. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the things that triggered me when I read it was and this is just me personally. This is not all men. Okay, this is just me being me. Was the babysitter thing that was in it? Just that word, it just triggered me.
Okay, yeah.
It triggered me when I read it, because I've got a similar perspective to you about, that it should be the parents' job to look after the kids, and the idea of going out for a date and getting a babysitter. I don't know why. I don't know. It shouldn't. It's I don't know. It's a relatively normal thing. It just kind of triggered me. I read it and I was like, don't want a babysitter. Would rather have a grandparent or friend of the family or something like that to.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And I don't know why that. It's kind of weird that should stand.
It's normal. It's normal to people. No, it's not weird. It's because you have values, and I'm the same. Like it's not weird at all. I actually, again, to be 100% honest, my husband will tell you, because I'm horrible. I won't leave my kids with just anyone. I'll leave my kids with their sisters, or I'll leave them with my mom, and that's it. I don't trust, but I have trust issues with people, so I just don't. I'm not putting the lives of my children in just some babysitter's hands. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I need to know the person. I need to know the background. I need to be able to trust the person. I need to know a lot about the person to leave my kids with them. And it's not that I'm controlling about it. It's that I need to know I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah,
I need to know that what I'm doing is right.
Yeah, and it's a huge job. Like, I don't know, it's a huge job to look after humans, little humans especially.
Yeah, I've got this problem with the kindergartens as well, where people will leave the families will naturally find a kindergarten for the children. They'll take the children there and they'll leave them there while they go to work. Okay, but and that's okay if you need to in that kind of situation. But my point is, how much do you know about the people who are in charge of the kindergarten? How much do you know about the kindergarten workers? What are their differences? What's their history? What are their background? What's their religion? What are their Okay, yeah. Can you hear? I've still got that anchor going on. Oh, it stopped now. Okay.
Oh.
Welcome back. Let's go. I was ranting about nurseries. That's what I was doing. I was ranting about my kids have arrived as well, so you might hear them screaming and shouting and throwing things at each other in the background as they do. People leaving their kids in these centers and not knowing much about the people that they're leaving their children with. Not only not knowing much about the care workers, but not knowing much about the other parents of the children that their children are spending time with. Now, this is usually a productive part of the day, and the children are going to pick up their ideas, their attitudes, their opinions, their habits from spending time with these other people. And a personality, their personality will be affected for sure. And people, I don't think a lot of people really pay that much attention to these issues, which are kind of important, because it's a growth stage, it's an important stage, and if the kids are spending at least half of the productive time of their week with these people, it's going to have a massive effect on them growing up. Now, some kids will be really happy to be there, probably, because maybe it's a different environment and it's fun, and maybe they get experiences they don't get at home. So that's cool for them. But you have to take care about it. You have to be aware that you're doing the right thing. You have to have the information.
I think so, and at least do like a little bit of not background search, but check things out. I mean, if something gives you a yucky feeling or you're not sure, listen to that, right? Because it's usually not. I know for myself, my oldest goes into kindergarten this year, and the thought of putting him on the bus to go to school, because we live in the country, I can't do it. I have to drive him. So I'm the same way. It's like I can't do that. I'm not going to trust just some bus driver that I have no idea. I know nothing about. I don't know their driving record. I don't know anything. All I know is that the school says they're good enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'm okay with their vetting process.
Yeah, well, that's a hugely important element, the element of trust. The whole world exists on the principle of trust.
Yeah.
And we know that trust doesn't work without people being vulnerable. So, you know, if people are putting up walls around themselves, or they're not prepared to share, or whatever, then, you know, there are issues that need to be dealt with. But the whole world is built on trust. Like you go into a cafe and you order a coffee, and, you know, you trust that the coffee is from whichever place they say it's from. You trust that it's real coffee. You trust that it hasn't been mixed with something else. You trust that the person who's serving you knows how to make coffee. You trust that they've been relatively trained in the right way, etc. It's all trust, because you can't. So, I mean, people say trust but verify. Yeah, but you can't go around verifying everything.
No, you couldn't.
I mean, you can try, but I mean, you'll go mad after 10 minutes, right? So, you know, you when you go to a shop and you want to buy some clothes or something, you trust that the clothes were, you know, you trust that the materials are okay, that, you know, that they were manufactured in a relatively, you know, sensible way, and it didn't harm the environment too much. You trust, because, you know, stuff that you can't check. When you buy a new car, you know, you trust that the mileage is what they say it is, that, you know, the engine hasn't been, you know, being used as a sports car or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's hard to, it's funny actually. And then, you know, something I've noticed is people, like, we have trust for those things easily, right? And we just assume that trust. But when it comes to being vulnerable,
we do. Sorry, I just want to add something. Sorry, I trust the bus is going to appear when it says on the bus timetable, and I'm always amazed that it does. I just I'm like, the bus, it's 5:20, and the 5:20 bus is here at 5:20. Oh my fucking god, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to say that. This is my head. Sorry.
Well, no, it's totally, and sometimes they could have reasons why that wouldn't happen, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm a, you know, to get that to happen, there's like 20, 30 people who have had to have done 20, 30 different jobs for that bus to get there on time, right? You know, it's quite incredible. So, you know, there's a whole series of things that have to happen in order for that to work. And when it all works out together, it's like, whoa, I wish everything could be like that.
Yeah, if only life couldn't be like that altogether, hey? It would be so
you get this little menu for what you want to order from life, and, you know, everything arrives at the right time. And no, it doesn't quite happen that way. It doesn't quite happen that way
at all. It doesn't. And I think it's, you know, like, to open up to somebody that you truly care about, you know, that's where trust can be a problem, because you don't, like, you want it to be a certain way, but things may not always turn out that way, right?
Yeah, I'm learning to live with the fact that you're wherever you need to be to learn whatever it is you need to learn. You know, if it's not happening, then it's not meant to be. And, you know, continually banging the nail that won't go in with the hammer that doesn't work is not going to improve your life.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And I think so many people get stuck in it for whatever reason. I think there's a whole thing of reasons, right? You know, sadly.
Oh, yeah, and there's good and bad within that, because, you know, two classic examples: people who decide to live in one place and people who decide to move around a bit. You know, both have their advantages and disadvantages. And you just have to learn to find a way that you can live with, which is relatively comfortable for you, and, you know, put up with the discomfort, because, you know, nothing is perfect.
Well, and that's just it, I think, too. And a lot of women seem to have this vision of perfect. And that's another thing I wrote in that article, is, like, it's like we seem to find the need to control our partners, because that's what we do with our kids. And you know, but I don't think men want to be controlled. Like, I don't think anyone wants to be controlled, period, not even just men, but especially a man, because they're the problem solvers, you know what I mean? Like, they should have the control in a good way, not in a bad way, not in a controlling, you know.
Well, there's some things that you want. I mean, you want a child to have the loving, close care and attention of, you know, the female, and you want the well to be dug by a male, right? I mean, it's kind of, if it was the other way around, it's still okay, but it would be a little bit weird. I mean, it's still okay, and I think that there would be something wrong with it. I mean, men are generally physically more strong than women, so they're designed for those more physical tasks. Now that there's, you know, men can take it to an extreme, and they do, and that's probably not a good thing. And then there's there's the nurturing aspect that women bring into relationships, which men can learn from as well.
Well, nurturing is one thing, but controlling is another, right? Like, if you're nurturing a man, you would support him in order to maybe get what you want or change something you're not liking, rather than to control him, right? Because I kind of think it's like, I think in there, it's like telling your kids to do a certain thing, clean your room, you know, and then they don't. But they learn them, if you just leave them, like with my girls, I just left them and they just cleaned their room. I didn't nag them. I didn't, you know, they just did it because that's what they, you know, they saw me do. I kept the house clean, so they kept their room clean. I didn't have to nag at them, you know.
Yeah, over control very often leads to over dependence later on, because if a person doesn't have the freedom to make decisions, they become trapped into thinking they can't make them, and they need other people to make them for them.
Yeah, well, and I've seen husbands that their wives are so on them about controlling. They're always making decisions for them. The husband will actually ask the wife before he does anything. And it's like, that's when you're getting into like a parent-child relationship, and that's not healthy.
Yeah, and you've got to be able to trust the other person to do whatever it is that they need to do without having to worry about whether they're going to be okay with it. I mean, right, you know, that's...
Yeah, I can't imagine.
That's straight back to school and putting your hand up and saying, please, can I go to the toilet? You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. See, in our school, we didn't have to do that. If you had to go to the bathroom, you just got up quietly and you went.
Well,
you didn't disrupt everyone.
Exactly. There's a right, sensible way to do it, and intelligent people understand that there's a simple procedure that doesn't hurt anybody, that can be simply followed if we really want to follow it.
Yeah, and I think that's huge for women, if they could just realize that, you know, they can parent their children, but they don't need to parent their partner. And if you feel so much that your partner needs parenting, why would you be with them? Because that can't be attractive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Unless you were subconsciously looking for that in the beginning, and you know, that's all you sort of know. You know, the subconscious choices the mind makes without us really realizing it from, you know, past habits, basically. We're
or if your mother was the same way with your dad and you just thought that was normal.
Yeah, which is the trap that catches about 90% of people, I think.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that maybe our generation has got to the point where we realize that now. Yeah, I mean, we were nowhere near realizing that maybe 100 years ago. Yeah. But now, as society, we can say, we've got issues with this. We've got problems with this. We need to deal with it. And you know, there was a time when I was younger that you'd hear these stories about all these actors and actresses and musicians and stuff going into therapy and talking about the past and all the problems that they had. And I kind of thought, well, that's all a bit crazy. But now that I'm a little bit older, I look at it and go, no, that was wise.
Yeah.
That was wise to go and explore those issues, because, you know, to clear the path ahead, you've got to be able to look back with clarity and see exactly where you came from and what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that you mentioned that I thought was interesting, the vision of perfect. Yeah, you talked about the vision of looking for perfect or wanting things to be perfect. And I think it's only been for me with having children that I've learned to reject that.
Yeah. Well, there's no such thing as perfect. I mean, your children are perfect when they're born and everything else. Yes, I agree with that. But perfect relationship, I don't know. I guess it depends what your definition of perfect is. Everybody's got their own perception. But in my opinion, there's no such thing as perfect. There's close, but I don't know about perfect.
Yeah, well, it's not perfect. Is not holistic. Again, from my view, it's perfect is.
Perfect would be boring.
It would be for longer than 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, the perfect is an incomplete picture because what is perfection? Perfection is hiding imperfection, right?
Yeah.
Because you're focusing on what the person is great at, which is like, oh, the person is great at this, and there'll be a million things that the person is not great at, and very often the places where we need to grow and to challenge ourselves are where we have certain weaknesses, where we're not complete as people, where we need to learn more about ourselves, where we need to become more balanced, and it's nice to have great skills. It's nice to be an expert at something. It's nice to be able to use those skills to help people, but at the same time, there's more to life.
Well, there is, and there's I talk to so many people. They think they have learned all they need to learn, and it's like, you have no idea. Like, to me, every day I learn, probably 50 new things I learn every day, maybe even more, because I'm a learner, so I'm constantly reading and looking and talking and connecting. So I don't know, like I could never imagine my life without learning something, and especially learning something about myself, because that's like that's where the most passion for myself is just to learn about who I am and what makes me me and what makes me tick, and how can I improve me, and how can I nurture the parts of me that aren't perfect, and but it's me.
Oh yeah, it's a never-ending process. All the religions and the spiritual elements of self are all about knowledge of who am I, why am I here? And we don't ever get a complete answer to the question. We get some pieces of data and information that we can use within our lives, but I think well-rounded, well-developed people are constantly changing as well. You're not going to be the same person. Well, I definitely hope I'm not the same person today that I was 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure that I'm not. If I compared myself to who I was in the past, which is the beauty of YouTube videos, because I can now go back on my YouTube channel and look at the videos I made 8 years ago, and I can cringe, and the hair on my arm can stand up, and I can get a chill down my back, and I can go, oh no, oh no. But that's the point. The point is to realize that was that was then, this is now, and there's only one way to go. That's forward and move forward. And you're not gonna learn anything if you're not, prepared to put yourself out there and make a few mistakes and challenge yourself to a certain extent. And a lot of people are living far too much within the safe borders and boundaries of their comfort zone, I think. And I've spent the last 5 years pushing every comfort zone that I can find around myself to see if there's a limit to things, and I don't think there is. I don't think there's a limit to how much people can learn, because I think there's always another level that people can go to, and that's the way we are as humanity. People always end up running further or running faster or being able to do more of a certain thing, and that's the way that it should be. We should be standing on the shoulders of history, so that the next generation get that lift up to the next level. So I'm not sure if we've been able to answer any of the male-female divide questions in our conversation. I'm not sure if we've got any closer to discovering what, if there is a division, what it is, what makes women tick, what do men need. Are there any general answers to those things?
I don't think there is, to be 100% honest with you. I think that it's such a broad topic, and it's such, as humans, we're so complex and everybody's different at the same time, right? No two people are the same. So I think the biggest thing is we all want the same things, but different things in a different way, I should say. So I don't know.
There's also a lot of what I would call misdefinition. I don't know, is that a word? And what I mean by that is what we call happiness, what we call love, is just so abstract that it's as you said, it's different for everybody, and that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody.
Yeah. No, well, that's just it, and I think the thing
about family life is just like
the joys of children. Right?
You can have it.
They're noisy, but they're lovable. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think the whole thing is so huge, but I think number one, we have to have understanding for each other as humans, not just a partner, but understanding and compassion. And, they talk about how you need to have empathy and blah, blah, blah. But empathy is a tough one, because you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, but you're not going to feel the same way, because everybody has their own perspective, right? So I'm kind of funny about empathy. I believe in it, but at the same time, it's still your feelings. So to try to, if my husband doesn't get hurt feelings when I say no to sex, how should he understand that my feelings are hurt?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if that's not his way, if it doesn't bother him, then why would he understand if it bothers me? How could he put himself in my feelings? How could he empathize with me? Right?
Yeah, that's a hard situation to be in another person's mind, to put yourself in another person's position. It's hard but necessary. It's hard but necessary. I wrote about that from a business context yesterday, which is, it's not about human relationships, but it is, because it's about marketing. Yeah, it's if you want to sell a product to people and you don't have empathy for who your customer is, you're never gonna find your market. Yeah, so it is something which needs to be applied in in life, but you always need to explain things to people in a way in which they understand. And you know, you might have this end goal, and maybe for some people empathy is the way to that point, but maybe for other people another road is the way to that point. So you can only explain things to people in terms of their own experiences. And also, I think you can only go as deep with other people as you've gone with yourself. You're limited. Your understanding of other people is limited by your own understanding of yourself. You will not be able to understand other people if you don't understand yourself. Exactly. If that makes some kind of sense.
And I think a lot of people don't understand themselves. Like, they haven't even started to dig into that, you know. And when you do start to dig into it, you haven't even.
It gets crazy, because at a certain point in time, if you start digging, you're forced to make changes, and it doesn't have to be radical, but you're still forced to make changes, and that's tough, because you begin to understand what works for you and what you need, and that might be different from the past. You know, we're all you know, living in culture. We're living in culture, following cultural programs, and you know, it might not be what's right for us. And that's hard. And one thing I've realized from the anchor conversations with people is that we are all looking for similar things, and the world is really diverse, but we've all got the same problems down deep inside.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think the understanding and the compassion comes in, because, you know, we're all struggling with humans.
Yeah.
So if you could just, you know, and if you, in my opinion, like, if I'm going to be with somebody, married to them, in a partnership, I want that person to be my friend, not my enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can try to understand, you know, who he is, rather than why he just won't change into what I want him to change into, then I can get further ahead, right?
Oh yeah, and there's also, I mean, marry into that the holistic principle that friends and enemies can be two parts of the same thing.
Yeah.
Because your enemy can be someone on whom you sharpen your sword, basically for life. And you know, and I teach this in some of my business coaching, that, you know, the person, you're not fighting against the person on the other side of the table, right? They may oppose you, but they're still there to give you an opportunity to improve what it is that you're doing, and without them you wouldn't get to the next level.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, and same with a relationship, because a true good relationship would challenge you in you, like challenge you, right? Bring up stuff in you,
and
that would only, if you don't look at it as a victim role, you could improve on it.
Oh yeah, just I'm a victim is just powerlessness, right? So you know, it's I used to go to these concerts in London many years ago when I lived there, and I used to go to these like underground rock venues and metal venues. So they were all dark and they had red lights and nobody smiled, and there was this really loud hardcore band, and they had this song called "Don't Be a Victim." And I carry that message with me from like 20-25 years ago still to today. It's just like, don't be a victim. It's just
I know, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. I know, I'm the same. And I guess that's why we're coaches. Right?
Yeah.
I guess that's why we help people. And, you know, it's, you know, I even look at my life and how I grew up, and it would be so easy to just fall into that crazy victim mode. Actually, my sister has, and still is. and we grew up in the same house, but I chose just to not do that. Like, I couldn't. I watched my mom do it, and it was like, why would I do that? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me.
Oh yeah, I mean that's that's a classic story. It's the story of the father who's an alcoholic who has two sons, and one of them drinks a lot and the other doesn't drink anything, and you ask.
That's me and my sister.
Yeah, and one of them, why do you drink a lot? Oh, my father drank a lot. And you ask the other one, why don't you drink? And my father drank a lot, right?
Yeah.
It comes down to choice at the end of the day, and people have to realize that. I mean, is life happen? The victim mentality is life is happening to me, right? And you've got to ask the question: is life happening to me, or am I happening to life? And I think you've got to see yourself in a positive, active role if you're going to make any seriously important change in your own life. You've got to grab the bull by the horns and wrestle with it in order to learn something. And that's the way forward. Dun dun dun. That's the way forward. Yeah. Okay. It's I gotta go and check and see if my family or see what they're doing. And looks like
perfect. Well, it's been good chatting with you.
Okay, no, it was great. It was really great. What's in your plans for the near future? What's coming up for you?
Not too much. Not too much. I'm just working on a few online courses that I'm going to try to put out for website design. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. What about writing? You got any articles, any ideas coming up?
I'm always writing, so they just kind of pop up.
Good. It's good to just keep at it and constantly put stuff out and give people.
Well, I actually just did one about time. I was just sitting and reflecting on time, the word time. And so I did a pretty good article. I just haven't published it yet. I've been kind of sitting on it because I've been thinking about doing a podcast, but I've been thinking maybe I should do a YouTube video. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do.
Okay. Well, hey, I could rant about time with you. I have no problem with that, right? First page of my business book is all about time. That's the first page.
Time is, it's a huge subject, just like anything else, I guess. Hey.
Yeah, and yet the single most important subject. The single most important subject. In fact, because my background is in language, I'll just give you this in case we don't talk about it. I'll give you this little bit of information now. If you look at the etymology of the word time. The etymology of the word time, if you go into, and this is, because what I do with words from, well, why do we need to use that word? Why is it important? And the word time has transformed from its original meaning, which was limited space.
Okay.
The original meaning of time was limited space. So if you realize that people talk about space and time, right, as if they're similar elements, but they're not similar elements. They're in fact the same element. Yeah, you've got space and limited space, and the bigger space is this universal space that we live within and can't really understand because it's so massive, and it appears to be, everywhere and ongoing. And then there's time, which is limited space, where we have influence in our lives. And so once we begin, I think, to understand that, then there's hopefully an impulse or an impetus to make a difference, because that's
well, I think
what time is for.
That's the one thing. That's exactly what I came to the conclusion of. And I thought of it as like, if you were to think of time, because you don't know how much you have left, it's limited. Mm-hmm. So if you were to think of money in the same aspect, if you had a bank account and you had no idea what the balance was, but you could withdraw money, but at any point that money could stop, how would you prioritize your money, right? Would you pay your bills? Would you pay your rent and your mortgage payment? You would do all that first, make sure you had a place to live. you know, you would prioritize things a little differently if you didn't know how much.
I'd go to the bank and just take out as much as I could right now and just keep taking because it might stop, right? That's my thinking, right? I'd be like, it might run out and you might not be able to do it tomorrow. I'd be like, okay, then I take everything out today.
Yeah, I would do the exact same thing. But it's kind of, I was thinking of it in that way. It was like, I think if we could relate to it a little differently, we may spend our time a little more wisely, right?
Yeah, and, you know, the language that we use with time, to spend time, right? You know, we use that verb in connection with it, which is really important. The word hour, you know, it's the same pronunciation as our, belonging to us. Yes, same word. The pronunciation is exactly the same. So the word our means belonging to us.
Yeah.
And that really personalizes the element there. The word minute and the word minute, it's spelt exactly the same.
Yeah.
There's all these. Hey, why do we call a second and not a first? Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody explain that one to me, please. Right.
The lovely language.
Oh, it's all backwards and upside down, but there's definitely a pattern to it. So, so I wrote a grammar book years ago and never published it, and I was like, whatever. Whatever. There's a whole background there within the language, which is really, really interesting. Every word, every sentence, every structure has an extremely specific purpose that has been very carefully laid out. It's a design of absolute genius, and people are using it all the time, and they've got no idea.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a guy on Anchor that I've co-hosted with. His name's David something. I can't remember his last name.
But something would be a good last name to have. A podcast with David something.
Yeah, but he knows all the language stuff, and when he talks, he's just so passionate. He's fun.
David Nelwan. That's the man.
You've talked to him.